All right, it is straight up noon on Wednesday, the 21st. We're going to start the meeting of MUD 39. We'd like to call the meeting to order at this time. So we want to receive any comments from the public? None. Moving on to item number 3, consider an act on request for adjustments or relief from specific charges imposed by the district.
We have nothing this month.
Then we'll move on to the consent agenda, items 4 through 7, minutes, review of the disbursements, receive the collection report, and consider an act on approving attendance and expenses for district and or trustee business. I did notice one thing in the minutes. It may have been since corrected, and it may be correct, I don't know, but in there you referenced Brian's comment about the annexation, and it says Mr. Yates reports that he heard back from the city of Houston. And I think that's supposed to be the city of Conroe. And that's the only thing I noticed. Anybody else?
Nope, nothing else.
Any other comments on the consent agenda? Can we get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve as stands. With the one correction.
All right, so we have a motion to accept the consent agenda with the adjustments to the minutes as presented, except for the correction as noted. Moved by Kevin, seconded by Jim. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, moving on to item number 8, review and act on the district's draft fiscal year 2022-23 operating budget and recommend water rate structure.
All right, everybody should have a copy of updated budget based on your total tax rate of 29.25%, which was published in the paper. Nothing really to report other than a few of the numbers did, water and sewer revenue did change a little bit because now we have August actuals in here.
Mhm.
You still end the year with 17, almost 18 months of coverage, which is really healthy. We'll take any questions if you have them. I think we got a whole bunch of questions in the last 30 days, but if you have something that's come up, we'll be happy to answer that today.
And I know we did have several questions last month that we asked. So anybody have any other questions as of now? Ronnie, Jim?
No, I'm good.
So are we just accepting this report, Mike? Is that what we're doing here?
Well, it's a little bit backwards. We kind of approved the tax rate. The tax rate is based on the tax rate that you published, and that's what the budget's based on. Kind of approved the budget and then approved the tax rate, which are kind of hand in hand, but
Yeah, we probably should change that.
we might should do the tax rate first and then approve the budget.
So should we
Based on
just
the tax rate that's approved.
table item number 8 for now then?
Correct.
Let's do
Okay.
9 before 8.
Okay. So we'll table item number 8 just briefly and we'll move on to item number 9. Conduct a public hearing regarding the district's intent to levy a 2022 tax rate.
So this is the second step of the two-step process. Sean, I know this is your first time to go through this process. Kevin, I believe you did it last year.
First time.
This your first time as well? Okay. So we talked last month about how adoption of the tax rate's a two-step process. First step is to authorize publication of your notice of intent to levy a tax not to exceed a particular amount. Y'all did that last month. It was published in the Courier by Jeannie. So now here we are for the second step in that process. And that is to first conduct a public hearing to receive any comments on the published proposed tax rate. And then after you receive any comments, you close the public hearing and then you consider the adoption of the order. And if you have any changes that you want to make to the actual rate that's adopted, you'll have that discussion under the following item, which is number 10. So at this point, we do need to recess the regular meeting and open the public hearing for any comments related to the district's 2022 tax rate.
So do we need like a timestamp on that? 12:04, 12:05? Do we need to be that specific? All right, so we are then recessed from our regular meeting. Now we're in the public hearing section of our project, or of our plan here. So
Correct.
any comments from the public? All right, haven't heard no comments from the public. We reconvene. So the public meeting is now closed at 12:05. And we will reconvene into our regular meeting and go back to item number 9.
Item number 10.
Item number 10, I'm sorry.
So under item number 10, this is where y'all will consider your adoption of your levy. So we have prepared the order on the, actually, we have that blank on there since we weren't sure what y'all were gonna levy. What was our publication rate?
29 and a quarter.
So that's what y'all authorize publication at. If y'all want to have discussion on keeping that rate or modifying it all, now would be the time to visit.
All right, so then let's do that, because I do have a couple of questions regarding that. So we've published this rate, we've put it out to the public. We've not heard anything from anyone one way or the other. So are we good if we, the five of us, elect to have that rate? We're okay with that from this point forward, and we can change it. And I think there were some parameters that we had to operate within last time.
So you can go down, but you can't go up.
Correct.
Okay.
So any discussion on the 29 and a quarter?
Which is a 0.75.
How low can we go?
Well, I mean, your budget, your debt service is what it is. So that's fixed. So really you're talking M&O, and you've got a little bit of a surplus that's budgeted for this year.
I think when we talked last time, Sean, we had a very narrow margin, 28.
That's what I recall.
Yeah, 28 something, so.
He's about a 74,000.
Yeah. It was less than a penny was what we could.
So what was the rate there? Attorney, our
It
financial
was
advisor.
29 and a quarter is what they recommended, which is a 0.75% reduction. It's 30 cents is what you have now. So you'd be going down from 30 cents to 29 and a quarter.
So they recommended.
Yes.
Or,
Yes,
and what did we print in the paper?
29 and a quarter.
Okay.
That's great.
What are you thinking, Sean, though? You're saying, I know from the benefit of the residents, of course, we want to go as low as we can, but we certainly don't want to do anything to the detriment of operations and.
Yes, the only reason I bring it up is, I think it's beneficial to pay as little as you can for services, but you don't want to pay too little to not get the quality that everyone's accustomed to as well. So with just simply refreshing the fact that it's a very tight margin, I'd say go with what we have. I think it's the right thing to do. There's a certain quality of life that people like here in the Woodlands. That's why they move here.
And would it be appropriate for us to take any comments from the staff in terms of operational dollars and so forth? I mean, is this a comfortable budget? Obviously, you guys prepared it for us, but are you okay with that?
You got a healthy balance. You got a healthy end of the year with the healthy coverage. If you wanted to take off that quarter of a penny, park break, it's not a deal breaker.
I mean, I like the idea of the 29 and a quarter, just from the standpoint of it is a cut. It was cut last year. We're cutting again this year.
Yeah.
Gives us some flexibility if we need to maintain this rate next year. If we want to cut again next year, it gives us a little more flexibility, I think, to do that.
Absolutely.
So I like, that's why I like 29 and a quarter. I think it sets us up really well for next year.
I'm good with that.
All right. So do we have any formal process other than just a motion from the board?
A motion for the board to adopt the order levying at, if you are good with 29 and a quarter, to have that total tax rate comprised of 20 cents for debt service and 9 and a quarter for maintenance and operations.
I make a motion that we go with the 29 and a quarter tax rate.
All right.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor and a second to adopt the tax rate of 29 and a quarter% as proposed. All those in favor of the adoption signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Oh, any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, so now back to item number 8.
Yeah, that budget is prepared on what we just adopted. If you have no objections to that, we would take a motion to approve.
All right, I just have one question. So looking at this, it looks like from what I'm seeing, if I'm reading it correctly, we have a potential proposed surplus of $99,000. Is that right? All right, okay. Any other questions or comments on that proposed budget? I know we had, like I said, we had quite a few questions last time, but I think we got through most of them.
I move that we approve the proposed budget.
All right. We have a
Second,
motion and a second on the floor to approve the budget as proposed. All those signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you all very much. So moving on to item number 11, approve and execute an amended district information plan.
This is a document that is recorded in the property records. It has a lot of factual information about the district, what your tax rate is, what your boundaries are, what amount of bonds you have authorized, how many bonds you've issued. So anytime that factual information changes, we have to update and report it in the property records. Also attached to the back of that form is the notice to purchasers that's provided to people. So both the notice to purchasers and the district information form list your current tax rate, as I mentioned. So now that we've adopted 2022 tax rate, we can update that and put it in property records. Okay, so that's item number 1.
All right, so we need a motion from the floor and a second to approve the execution of the amended district information form.
I move that we go forward with the approval and execution of the amended district information.
All right. Second,
Second.
Sean. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor to adopt the amended approved form and get it filed appropriately. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item number 12. Receive the San Jacinto River Authority Woodlands Division report.
Sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Monthly operating report is in your packet. One thing to add is as of September 1st, we did switch to the 50% surface water fee for all water receiving facilities. So the Woodlands is 50% surface water now. If you have any questions on the operational data, I'll be happy to answer.
So not so much directly on this information. I'm also not sure if I'm allowed to bring this up or not. In the trustee meeting, they had 2 people that were running for office they had concerns about water. I was a little confused on like what they were doing.
They were running there. I believe there's.
If they're running for the Lone Star, there's a couple of positions open on the Lone Star Groundwater Conservation Board. One is a Woodlands representative, and that director, John George, is running for that position.
Okay.
Another position is open for precinct 3. It's James Nowak, precinct 3 position, and James Ridgway is running for that position. So
Okay.
they're kind of running not against each other, but kind of as a team for those 2 open spots.
Okay, so they both spoke about groundwater and surface water and their opinions on that. So I think it's great to that we're at a 50-50 ratio on an annual basis. I would just continue to like more information on this as certainly the topic increases. I mean, it's a topic, whenever we meet at the water treatment facility all the time on how we move forward with what the state thinks we should do, making sure we don't run out of water, making sure we have good quality water. We don't overcharge for the quality that the citizens get. So just kind of on that topic, I think there's a lot of moving pieces and people involved, and I just appreciate the information as much as we can give.
And I think typically as an ongoing reports, we do get that.
Perfect.
And so anytime you have extra questions or additional questions, I'm sure they're happy to answer that. But it's been my observation up to this point that, as time goes on, you see it unfold and we do get the information I think that you'll be looking for.
So June and July were substantial more production and delivery than in previous years. Is it solely due to heat, due to temperature?
Due to I believe the official term is drought.
Right.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Summer has a sheet there where she compares it to 2011, the drought of 11.
So look on page 19. It's a chart that compares it to the last drought we had, which was 2011.
Oh,
So you
okay.
can kind of see
It's
where we
very
were.
much in line then. Okay.
July was extreme.
Yep.
August started out strong, ended wet. Looks like we're starting to get into a little bit of a dry spell now, but it shouldn't cause any issues.
11 was only groundwater, using well water back then.
Okay.
Oh, wow. That's a big change.
Also, in the summer, and Dan have some quick updates for y'all.
Hi, on page 32, we have a flyer about two tours that we are offering. The first is October 6th, it's the surface water treatment plant located at our groundwater reduction building on Lake Hunter. And then the second is going to be October 20th of wastewater treatment plant 1. We had a few newer directors had asked for a tour of wastewater treatment facility. And then we have two more tours I am working to schedule. One is going to be a tour of the Bear Branch Reservoir and Dam. And then the other tour is going to be a tour of our water plants and wells. We've had some interest in seeing how that operation works. So once I get those dates finalized, I will send that out to you guys.
Thank you.
Do you have a capacity number of people who can go on these tours or?
I think, on tours, is there a limit?
I don't know if we've done limits out of an abundance of caution before or not. I mean, Open Meetings Act is always there, and it's about deliberation of district business. So if you have more than two directors from each district, either you have to be very careful of it being informational from the River Authority to all the participants, and there not be a dialogue, feedback back and forth about issues that would be district business, because then you've got the walking quorum issue. So could it be done? Yes. Would you have to be extremely careful about communication during the tour to make sure you didn't talk about district business? Yes, you would have to be very careful if you had more than two.
And if we have a larger group in terms of how we run it, we have several operators that we will solicit to do tours to bring the groups down. So it's not one big group.
Okay. And I see you have an RSVP down here. Do you have a deadline?
If you can let me know a week of, just so I can kind of have a head count to see if I need to pull more, have some assistance on the tour. And then the other topic, and I think we talked about it a little bit before the meeting started, but Jay's Houston did do a podcast last week, and the link with the video was sent out yesterday.
Yeah, we got that. All right.
And that is all I have for you guys today.
Okay. Anybody have any questions regarding the tours or the other information? All right.
Yes. So my item today, just real quick update, wastewater strategic plan. For information in your packet, page 33 is meeting summary from August 24th. Just one of our progress meetings with the consultant. Really what I wanted to present and update you on today was just over the past month and a half, we've been working with the consultant on planning for the upcoming stakeholder meetings. So we have added a stakeholder meeting that was not in the original plan. That's going to take place on September 28th. At that meeting, our agenda is going to be looking like going through with the stakeholders, the approach and the inputs and variables and assumptions that are leading into the cost estimates for various shortlisted alternatives. We want to receive input from the stakeholders on what kind of metrics we're utilizing and how we present those in various charts, graphs, forms, tables, et cetera, and all the assumptions that go into it. So once we get to presenting all the numbers at the November 2nd stakeholder meeting, there should be more discussion on the results and kind of path forward versus questioning on how did we get these numbers. So trying to give some an opportunity for input, ask questions, better make this more of an efficient process come November and then into December, January, February, when we really got to make some decisions on where this is. So that's one other agenda item for September 28th meeting. We will have a short presentation on the membrane bioreactor technology. There is a couple alternatives that are on the short listed that utilize that technology. We want stakeholders to understand how that differs from the current conventional treatment technology that we're utilizing, pros, cons, et cetera, of each, and have a little bit more information on that side.
Okay. And I believe Sean is our representative to that
Mhm.
particular committee. Will you be able to make that meeting on
Oh,
the
yeah,
28th?
It's already on my calendar. It's 10 to 2, right?
That sounds correct.
And we're gonna do, I
Absolutely.
mean, I think we're gonna talk about this after, but aren't we doing our meeting at 2? The special
Yeah.
meeting's also at 2,
And that is coming up, item number 17.
Okay,
so we'll, so
fantastic.
you'll be in meetings from 10 to 5.
That's plenty. I have plenty of-
Yeah.
Plenty of PTO at work. so.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you.
All right, item number 13, receive the attorney's report.
No journal items for the attorney report, continue to cover several other items under 15 through 17. I
All right.
will answer general questions if y'all have them before we get into those specific items.
Any questions for the attorney?
General.
No, good. All right, Brian, item number 14, receive and act upon staff information regarding the upcoming MCAD, so the MCAD, Board of Directors election for the term of 2022 to 2023.
This is actually the vacancy, I think this language was pulled for the last election cycle, but it's actually a vacancy that's come up from a seat that was filled by a representative from Montgomery ISD. So it's my understanding from Jimmy's bill today that the MCAD Board of Directors has requested nominations from participant entities for a replacement. So we place this on each of our red district agendas. The position, as I mentioned, is not a special purpose district position, and the appointment of a replacement is at the discretion of the current board. So the nominations that we make are really just trying to have some sort of a persuasive effect for the board of directors on who they would appoint, even though the spot's not for a special purpose district position. We have had two different individuals nominated already in the meetings we've had so far by the Woodlands Muds. Walt Bachewski, who is a director and has been for a little while on Mud number 1. I believe he also has some history with the township. Was it the DSC?
He was a
Chairman of the DSC.
DSC. He was a former hometown hero. He's got a lot of history here.
So he was nominated by his Mud 1, and then was also nominated, again, as additional nominations to kind of show more support for a particular candidate by Mud 60. I don't know if Mud 7 or.
Mud 7 didn't act on it at all. They had no nomination, and 47 also nominated Walt.
And then Metro Center Mud, there was a director who nominated someone who's not affiliated with the Muds, but he.
A personal friend is the president. He thought he'd be a good fit.
You know his name?
Wayne Lasco.
So y'all can take action if you want to nominate one of these two individuals, or if you've got a third person. I know the more people we nominate, the more we dilute our. choice of influence.
So just for,
What does this person do on the appraisal? I know what the appraisal district is, but I'm not quite sure what this person, what capacity we're trying to fill here.
So the board of directors is not the appraisal review board. It's not the folks who actually hear
Okay,
appeals. This board sets the budget for the appraisal district and also is responsible for hiring and oversight of the chief appraiser.
Okay.
So we are fortunate in the Woodlands that we do have one representative from our area that's already on the board of directors, Art Bredehoff, who was appointed by one of the other school districts.
Magnolia or?
Yeah, he didn't get the special purpose district position, but got nominated by one of the school districts. So if we're able to get, another person, that'd be great. But we'll see.
so just for clarification, this is not somebody that we necessarily have taken from our board per se. It's a collective recommendation, if you will, from the various boards. So like Brian was saying, Mud 1 and/or 6 nominated Walt, and I think somebody else came behind him and nominated Walt. So we could certainly nominate one of us, or we could go with the nomination of Walt or one of the other guys. So, and having said that, I'd like to throw my support behind Walt as well. I've known him for quite a while. He's a good guy. He served a lot of capacity in various capacities throughout the Woodlands. Served on the Mud, on his own Mud and currently serves on his own Mud board, and he's very well informed. And he was the chairman of the DSC for multiple years. So he's very
Active.
very in tune to what's going on in the Woodlands, understands the uniqueness of the Woodlands, and certainly would, in my opinion, lend a lot of credibility to this board. So if we are going to open up for nominations or potential conversation, I too would like to nominate Walt Leszewski as our potential recommendation.
I'll second that.
All right.
Yeah, same. I got to know Walt running when we ran. He was up for election at the same time, so we spent a lot of time in the sun together. So he's been doing this a long time. I think he'd be a great representative.
So I wasn't necessarily making a motion
Oh,
per se, but do you want to make the motion,
I'll make
Jim?
the
So
motion.
yeah, if there's no other nominations, then y'all
Yeah.
can close the nominations and vote on it.
Okay. Any other nominations that we would want to consider? All right, so then nominations are closed. So Jim will make a motion to support Walt Leszewski in that role, and Kevin's making that second. All right, so we have a motion on the floor to nominate from MUD 39, nominate Walt Leszewski for this position on the MCAD. All those in favor of the motion signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Thank you for that, Brian. Item number 15, status of proposed annexation of the 153 acres of land into the district and authorize any action in conjunction therewith.
So update there, it looks like we're finally starting to get some traction there at the city. It's taken a while, but I think we're finally getting there. I visited with staff yesterday, and they are working to get us on the October 12th workshop agenda and October 13th city council agenda to consider approval of both the consent resolution for the district to be able to annex this 153 acre tract, as well as to approve the strategic partnership agreement. So we have to adopt the strategic partnership agreement first, and we'll talk about that in the next item. That will go to the city. They would conduct their first public hearing at the workshop on the 12th, and then they would conduct their second public hearing at the regular meeting on the 13th, and then they would approve the strategic partnership agreement and then provide approval of the resolution for the district annex. If all that lines up, still got to see if it all plays out, but if it all lines up, then that would actually put this board in the position of being able to complete the annexation at your October 19th meeting, because Conroe City Council meets the week before our board meeting. So that would line up nicely. If there's a delay, then our next opportunity would to complete the annexation would be at our November regular board meeting. But hopefully this is starting to wrap up.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Good. So that was an update, and we're going to have a discussion actually on the proposed partnership itself. And I kind of read through it. I know, are we ready to move to that item?
There's no action under 15, and we can move to 16.
Okay. So I guess my basic question originally was, is this just a standard agreement?
So it is, Conroe has taken the position, rightly or wrongly, but they've taken the position that they are not approving annexations into MUDs without strategic partnership agreements. Now, there's some issues about their legal authority to do that, to require that, but that's the position that they've taken. So we can either work within that or say no and try to seek approval from the PCEQ for the annexation of the property without the strategic partnership agreement. We've decided to move forward with the strategic partnership agreement, but in a substantially modified form, because as we've talked about in prior board meetings, there is the regional participant between the township and the city of Conroe, as well as between the township and the city of Houston, that puts off the ability of both of those cities to annex the Woodlands until 2057. So the typical strategic partnership agreement is for 20 to 30 years, and there's a period of limited purpose annexation that happens immediately when a strategic partnership agreement is entered into. And then once the term of the strategic partnership agreement ends, a city can fully annex the During the period of limited purpose annexation, the city can impose a sales and use tax in the area that that's subject to the spa, et cetera. None of that works for us because of this regional participation agreement. That agreement says that the city will not annex for any purposes, limited or otherwise, and the township already imposes a sales tax within all of the portions. So you have a cap, a statewide cap, and a local cap on how much the sales tax can be, and you can't exceed that. So we had to really substantially modify this strategic partnership agreement to harmonize with the RPA. And so that's what we've done. Also, the city was not willing to provide the consent to the annexation until the district approved the strategic partnership agreement. That, of course, gave me a heartburn for my client, because if you are approving a strategic partnership agreement and getting nothing in return that's guaranteed, well, then I think the likelihood, we talked about this, the likelihood that this strategic partnership agreement ever becomes activated in reality is slim to none, because I think everybody anticipates that at some time between now and 2057, the Woodlands will incorporate. Question isn't if, it's just a question of when. So if the Woodlands does incorporate, then the spa goes away, and that's the end of that tune. But we had to address entering into the strategic partnership agreement without the city providing a commitment to consent to the annexation that spurred this whole thing. So we added additional language in there that said, you'll see it in there, that talks about if the city doesn't provide consent within 5 business days of approving the strategic partnership agreement, then the strategic partnership agreement automatically terminates. So that's how we skin that cat. We'll have the district approve the strategic partnership agreement, but if the city approves it, but then doesn't consent to our annexation, the agreement's going to automatically terminate. So I think we've addressed all the unique characteristics of our regional participation agreement, as well as the city's request that this be entered into prior to us getting consent. So I think we'll cover all bases.
So what is, and I reading through it, I couldn't understand, what is the city's advantage to have this strategic partnership agreement?
So that goes back to what their default rule is. Cities have been significantly limited in their ability to annex property without consent by the legislature. So in 2019, used to cities, they had to follow certain procedures, but then they could forcibly annex property. Kingwood is kind of the most trotted out example. The legislature heard enough stories about forcible annexations that they weren't pleased with what they heard, that they took away the city's ability to go and forcibly annex. So now, in most cases, cities cannot annex unless it's by consent. And so one of the ways that they can expand their boundaries is through these strategic partnership agreements. And so that's why if districts are wanting to be created, or if districts want to annex property, the city's using that opportunity. The Conroe is not unique, but cities are in general are have to use that as leverage to have these strategic partnership agreements that give them the ability to expand their boundaries over time, where they otherwise wouldn't be able to. In our case, and I argue this to staff, but they wanted to keep this deal as consistent as possible with their other deals, that this is frankly a pointless exercise for the Woodlands, because we have this overlapping RPA, 99+% chance that there's going to be incorporation by 2057. So the likelihood that Conroe is ever going to annex Bud 39, not very high. But that's usually what they get out of these. They get 2 things. They get the ability to annex, and they get to levy a sales and use tax. The city of Houston really pioneered these strategic partnership agreements. Frankly, it's a revenue stream for them. They're able to go and acquire areas to levy a sales tax in, but then not provide any services. Counties hate them, because the counties are the ones who get hit with having to provide, fire, EMS, sheriff's patrol, et cetera. But then the cities are extracting this revenue without having to provide service. But for Houston, it was a way for them to avoid the political fiasco of Kingwood, but still be able to generate revenue. Here, none of those justifications really make sense. It's really just a matter, my take on it is, it's just a way to kind of keep this deal somewhat consistent. So some other project in the future doesn't say, well, you didn't do it, you didn't require it for the Woodlands, so we shouldn't have to do it for our deal. If we can massage the agreement, which we've done, to make it no harm, no foul for Mud 39, then, and it allows us to be able to add this property, add value, and hopefully be able to reduce your tax rate for your citizens, then great.
So as it sits, if we made it all the way to 2057, in theory, the city of Conroe could annex just the two parcels or all of Mud 39,
Mud
right?
39.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
Okay.
we asked that question too, because, you know, is this agreement going to be just over the property to be annexed? And they said, no, they're requiring it for all their deals to be, if it's for a district that didn't already have a strategic partnership agreement, for all their deals, they're requiring it, the strategic partnership agreement as to all the existing property in a district as well as the property to be annexed.
So prior to this agreement, Mud 39 didn't have a strategic agreement with, oh, wow, okay.
But there was
So-
an RPA, there was a regional participation agreement between the township.
Okay.
So Brian, I got a couple of questions, and if you can just kind of bear with me on my train of thought for a minute. I feel like Columbo here because I don't know quite what questions to ask, but they're gonna sound stupid, but I got a reason. So the regional participation agreement is already in place, and it will supersede any agreement that we sign currently with Conroe.
We've got language in here that makes the terms of this strategic partnership agreement dovetail with, if you look at section 1.05 on page 46, it talks about the regional participation agreement and how the city is not going to be able to impose a sales and use tax, and it's going to push out the time period for when the city can even perform a limited purpose annexation. That's on section 2.02 on page 48, where we talk about limited purpose annexation, where it says at any time on or after the RPA expiration date. Most of these spots say immediately upon approval of the strategic partnership agreement, the property's annexed for limited purposes. So that's put off until after the RPA to make it consistent.
So I guess the clarification on my question is, if we enter into this agreement with Conroe, we're not doing anything that would mess up the agreement, the RPA that's already in place with the
Correct.
woodlands and
Correct.
everything else.
Correct.
So my kind of a follow-up to that then is, at the expiration of the RPA, which is going to be in 2057, if we haven't already done so, and if we didn't have this agreement in place with Conroe at that time, what would happen then to Mud 39 as it relates to Conroe and its activity to annex?
So at that point, the RPA would expire and the Mud 39, the property in Mud 39 would be subject to whatever the existing law was at that time. It's hard to handicap, you know, things change over time. I mean, maybe the law goes back to the way it was before 2019 and the city can go and forcibly annex like they did in Kingwood. Maybe it doesn't. We don't know. But it would go back to whatever the law was at that time in terms of the city's ability to annex. So if it was the law as it is today, they would not have the ability to annex Mud 39, whereas with the strategic partnership agreement, they would.
So that's my question. It seems like, based on what you're telling us, we're opening the door and giving them permission to annex Mud 39, irregardless of what the Woodlands does after the year 2057,
That's
if the Woodlands hasn't already incorporated by then.
That's correct. And that's the trade-off. That's
what I'm getting
they-
at.
That's the trade-off. And, you know, we've talked about that, you know, being what their ask is to be able to provide the consent, to be able to get the property in without us having to go another route through the TCEQ, which takes a lot longer to do. And if there's not certainty there, I think we have a good case. But you have to request water sewer service from the city first, and then you have to not reach an agreement, and then it goes to the commissioners, and then they make a determination about whether or not to provide that consent.
So I guess it gives me a little pause then, knowing that we're doing something or possibly doing something that's not already in existence today. And that we're opening the door for Conroe to come in and say, hey, you guys agreed to this back in 2022 and here we are type thing. And it makes me wonder whether or not we either need to modify in some way, if it's even possible, and or study this thing a little bit more in terms of making sure that we're not causing any harm down the road to the residents of Mud 39. My other question, not relative to that per se, but relative to this whole thing is, has the Woodlands looked at this at all? Have they given any offer, any opinion or any resistance or anything whatsoever? I mean, I know they have no say in it, but I'm just thinking through the process of we're part of the Woodlands and at least we should have maybe consulted, not consulted, that's not the right word, but
No, I mean, this has been a mud matter, so.
okay.
And do any of the other MUDs in the Woodlands have any strategic partnership agreements in place with any of the surrounding
No,
cities?
this district is the only one that's located in Conroe's ETJ.
Right.
All the rest of the districts are located in Houston's ETJ, and they have not,
Okay.
Houston hasn't taken
Yeah.
this position.
Okay, that's what I wondered too.
So let's move down the road to 2056. And the
Yeah.
Woodlands has not incorporated at that point.
Mhm.
And Mud 39 is in existence and Kevin's children are here and Sean's children are here and they're wondering what they're gonna do about protecting their district.
I mean, at that point, Kevin and I are in our late 60s and 70s.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, I'm thinking
Yeah.
about the future residents of the district.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what's their process gonna be at that time and what recourse, I guess, if for the lack of a better word, what recourse do they have to not allow that to happen? Is there any?
That's gonna be depending on what the law is,
At that time, right?
which is,
So if this was a strategic partnership agreement through 2023, okay, let's just, if we assume that the law is the way it is today, it would still have to be voted on the way the law is today by the residents to allow annexation to Conroe. Is that right? But if it was previous to 2019, Conroe could, in theory, forcibly annex the district. Okay. Okay.
And this agreement with Conroe doesn't give them any more ability to annex without the authority of the residents at this time under the current law.
no, it gives the ability to annex pursuant to the strategic partnership agreement after 2057. Gives them the authority that they would not otherwise have under the current law.
After 2057.
After
But
2057.
nothing between now and 2057 because of the RPA. Okay. Okay.
Regardless of if the law changes or not.
Exactly.
I think this may be a silly question, but in 2057, again, it's, 35 years from now. If they did annex Mud 39, is there any tie between Mud 39 becoming part of Conroe? And obviously there's lots of schools being built in between now and then. Do the kids not go to like Conroe type schools or are those not not
Those are
associated?
different.
Yeah, okay.
The corporate boundaries of cities are not coterminous with independent school district boundaries.
Okay. I mean, I'm just thinking of some of the reasons that my family moved here. And then I think of my grandchildren as well, so.
Brian, would you mind going back for just a minute to your time frame of what you were saying earlier? If we do this now, X falls into place, if we, and based on their meetings, and I know you said they're meeting on the 12th and 13th. I guess I'm asking, what's the detriment to us if we wait? And what's the detriment to the deal overall, as opposed to what are the benefits?
Well, I mean, trying to get this worked out with the city. I don't know what their time frame would be in terms of considering it on a future agenda. I don't know what it does from a deal perspective, because this was, originally driven by trying to add, y'all are a smaller district. I mean, you can see it up there. Y'all got a higher tax rate relative to the rest of the Woodlands. Mud 46 was in a similar situation back in the 80s. And the only way they could really get to a point, because they were just down there. And the only way it was High Oaks. And so the way they were able to get out of.
Is that pre-Creekside?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Was to annex property, add value to be able to grow their way out of a high tax rate or a higher tax. Now, y'all's rate is really low compared to any regular mud. I mean, most mud tax rates end up leveling out in the 70s. The Woodlands rates are ridiculously low in the bigger scheme of mud tax rates. But relatively speaking, mud 39s is higher than most of the other Woodlands districts outside of Creekside. But the idea was the only way to really, there's not a lot left to grow, to get to add in. So an opportunity to add 150 something acres and what the AB is going to be and the rest of the district getting the benefit of that would give the district the opportunity to be able to lower its tax rate over time with that value, because you talked about creating a defined area that would force that 153 acres to pay its own freight in terms of debt and not have the rest of the residents pay for that.
The 153 acres, where is that geographically on the map roughly?
So Dan, do you want to?
Sure. Dan might be able to draw it out a little
Some of
bit.
it's right here and the
Okay.
rest of it, I think is.
I'm real bad with directions, so.
Further back.
Right here, the chunk of property. And the rest of it's everything, everything you see west of the 1978 here. In addition to that, we just recently purchased another 50 acres right here, which is a AM South, the tower site, the AM tower site, that's now our possession.
So, and again, this could be a silly question, and I've only been in the Woodlands for about almost 3 years now. I grew up in Galveston County, but in the last meeting that I went to with the trustees, they had mentioned subsidence. I don't know a lot about subsidence, and I did some Google searches on my time off, and I have friends that had homes in Creekside. And those homes suddenly became valued a lot less after they had water inside the doors. Now I know there's going to be more like condos and businesses and things like that. My concern is previously we've not had to worry about subsidence really in this area. We're very high. If we add area there, is that something that we need to then focus on more?
So the county sets drainage standards to, and I'll get out of my depth on engineering really fast, but the short answer is they're supposed to be, they have to self-detain so that there's no more runoff than what the property had runoff as undeveloped property. That's the simplistic answer to it. In terms of water usage, I mean, we talk about the Woodlands is a significant user of surface water to be able to prevent that. So the bigger risk on subsidence is all the development around in the county. We're a county that is exploding in terms of growth. The amount of development we're talking about here, and only a portion of it being groundwater usage as opposed to surface water. I'll leave it to experts if there's others that have more expertise in the area of subsidence, but I think it's a larger scale issue for reduction, and it's the growth in the county overall that's drawing down the.
If you're interested, there's the very last page of the report has a QR code you can scan to get the subsidence report.
Okay, perfect.
It's a QR scanner. I'm leery of that. If you go to the Heart website, you can get downloaded.
Okay.
Let's don't get very far off topic because we want to stay on the agreement itself. And of course, subsidence is a very important issue and we do need to talk about that, but we don't want to veer too far off the agenda item. Brian, I have a question regarding do you know, and you may not, but is there anything in the RPA that would allow it to be extended in any way by agreement by both parties, whether it's Houston and the Woodlands or Conroe and the
I
Woodlands?
could not recall. It was entered into, it was a long period of time.
Yeah, 50 years.
Yeah.
So would it be prudent for us then in these sections where you reference the expiration of the RPA to maybe just put a comma and any extension thereof as agreed to within the, I'm not trying to put legal words here, I don't know, but I'm just thinking through the process that if there is something in the RPA that allows it to be extended, and we're saying that Conroe can come in at 2057 because that's the end of the current RPA and the Woodlands renegotiates some way or the other, would that automatically extend it and then extend beyond that? For the purpose of this agreement, would it automatically extend beyond that 57? I know you used the words at the expiration date and not the expiration of. So I don't know, maybe I'm thinking
Well-
too much here.
Yeah, I mean, I
He
think,
said, yeah.
I think there was some back and forth with the city, on coming up with a date. I think they were pressing for a date certain, on that. So I think in the likelihood, if we actually got out to that point of the extend that out, it's already then, point of a lot of discussion of who got the better deal on that. I don't know I don't know how far that's gonna go
Okay.
if we try to do it.
I
I
just-
think it probably is what it is.
All right, just thinking. So how many, you may have answered this already, but how many other strategic partnership agreements does Conroe have? Do you know, with
A lot.
with
Oh,
other
I
entities?
couldn't tell you, but they've got a lot.
Okay.
That's their standard
Yeah.
MO. That's requirements.
Okay.
And if the regional partnership, the regional participation, if it was to change, if there was something that ended it for whatever reason, what would happen with the strategic partnership?
So the only thing that would, off the cuff, is the thinking of what the company, it would be corporation.
Yeah, that's all. Okay. Okay. Okay.
If it incorporated, then the entirety of the Woodlands would incorporate.
Right. And therefore, cut off the ability of Conroe to annex property. You can only have property in one city.
And this will be my last question, I promise. What would happen to I think there's a little bit of a track of one of these pieces that is not in the Woodlands. Is that correct? If I recall, what would happen in that case? Could they annex that one little piece if they wanted to and not the part that is in the Woodlands? Maybe they wouldn't even.
No, because it would be in the district, and the law, I'm going off of memory here, is if a city annexes a district, they have to annex all of it. They can't annex part of a district.
Okay. All right. All right. Any other questions, thoughts?
You're not making it just today is the first hearing. So to be clear, we have to conduct the first public hearing. The adoption would be after the second public hearing that we're trying to get scheduled for, I think, next Wednesday.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the board? So no action is required right now?
Correct. We do need
Okay.
to adjourn the regular meeting again and conduct another public hearing. So these were questions and discussion by the board, but we also need to conduct a public hearing according to the strategic partnership agreement.
And just one quick question. These public hearings were posted, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It's part of the agenda and there's.
All right. So we will dispense with our current meeting and commence with a public hearing meeting at 12:53 to discuss any items relative to the strategic partnership agreement. So we are in now a public hearing. Any comments from the public? All right, hearing no comments from the public, we will close the public hearing and go back to our regular meeting at 12:54. All right. So now are we moving on to 17 or do we?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have any action to do on 16 at all. All right, schedule a special meeting to conduct second public hearing regarding the proposed SPA and consider approval of the same. And I think that Shelley said, I think she polled all of us for our availability and she said the best time would have been September 28th at 2 p.m. And I believe the proposed location is Harper's Landing Pavilion. Is that what I understood?
The law is that one of the two public hearings has to be within the boundaries of the district. And we do already have one location in the district that has been designated as a district meeting place.
And will that be posted there somewhere?
Yes.
What's the end time? There's 2 p.m.
Maybe about 15 minutes. I mean, there'll be a public hearing. If there's not a lot of public comments, then move on to consider approval and
Have there been any public comments?
No, it'll be here.
Okay. Wasn't sure if there's anything else.
And so will we have action at that time? Okay, so we need to be there at least in a majority. Okay.
Yes, it will be an actual board meeting. It'll be, outside. It's replaced inside there. We'll just be standing outside. That's how I've had to do some of these in the
Yeah.
past.
Oh, it's a good pavilion. It's.
Picnic
very
tables
nice
and everything.
Yeah.
It's covered. There's even a restroom.
Kevin will bring water for everybody.
Yeah, right.
You get the Capri Suns, I'll do the oranges.
There you
Yeah,
go.
exactly. All right, so good. Item number 17, then we're all scheduled for the 28th. Moving on to item number 18. Mike,
Okay, as Sean mentioned, there were two gentlemen that showed up at the trustee meeting, John Yours, James Ridgway. They are running for Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District positions. There is a campaign objective paper that they handed out. It's in the packet as well. I encourage you to read that. Those spots are available for our Woodlands votes. And the other thing I was going to mention is we have Brian and his team working on modifying or revising our RNS 60 for customer defaults. When a customer doesn't pay, fails to pay, before we cut them off, we've got to deliver a door hanger, and we're looking for different options other than doing that. It's getting more expensive to drive out there, and the companies that do that are charging more for that service. Brian is looking at that, and hopefully we'll come back with something after that. And then the final thing is, there is a nice complimentary letter in the packet by one of our customer service guys, Josh Akins. We like to get those, and happy to get those and show those off. So I'll answer questions if you have anything on the packet. Jim's been coming to a few meetings here and there. He came to one yesterday. I believe he's coming to one today. Still not driving yet, but getting around a lot better.
Mike, I had asked Jim and
Yeah, he did call me about that too. I apologize.
No worries.
You had asked Jim about the development or what's going on there in Donwick. I found out two things. I called the county engineer, Jeff Johnson. The precinct 4, I believe, is resurfacing Donwick from 242 to where it turns into concrete. They're going to make that all concrete.
Right.
Okay, but then there's 11 acres to the west of that somebody has cleared or is clearing. They do not have, according to Jeff, they do not have any water or sewer agreement from anybody, Conroe included, but they're hoping to get a water and sewer agreement and develop that property to some sort of commercial strip center. That's the best I got right now. So it's unusual to clear a property and not have any kind of water or sewer agreements, but that's apparently what this person.
Do we know who owns that property?
We can look it up on MCAD. Yeah, I don't know offhand, but yeah, we can look it up.
I was told over the weekend that somebody did look it up, I guess, just on MCAT or wherever it was that they found it. And that the property was owned by a company who typically develops like Montessori schools and so forth.
Oh.
So not that they knew that that's what it was going to be. That's just what they discovered the property owner to be. So I don't know what
Yeah,
they're
I'll be
doing.
happy to look it up, and just see if, do a little research and see if we can find out who he is or what he develops.
If through your connections, because you'd be a lot better at it than we would, if you through your connections, you could maybe check on that for us. Because we're getting a lot of questions from some residents and
Sure.
want to know that. All right, thank you so much for that. All right, any other questions? Thank you, Mike. All right, item number 19, receive the Woodlands Water Trustee Report. That is also item number 7 on page 74 in the packet. Mike, you have anything to add to that?
I don't. I think we should.
Sean did attend that meeting, so Sean, do you have anything to add?
Or something.
Overall, I think it went pretty smooth. It was mainly the budget. That's what they focused the vast majority of the time on, was just various questions about the budget. Everything ended up making sense. I apologize, I don't quite know everyone's name. What is your name with the computer? Maureen. They had some specific questions. Maureen gave all the details. It was very simple.
Straightforward.
Yeah. It mentioned subsidence, and then I asked about the chlorine levels in our area for our water treatment, and then got very good answers from Jason. So
Yeah.
It's wonderful. I did have one question, about the development in the mud. The road coming into the mud, Harper's Landing Boulevard or Parkway, maybe. At the end of that corner where it turns into kind of commercial after the dealerships,
Yes.
it holds a lot of water.
In the ditch there.
Yeah, like it was fixed and now it's just, they have it barricaded off and it's just like a giant pool of water.
It's a funny, there's a funny interface there. If it's
Okay.
on the feeder road in front of the dealership, it's TxDOT.
Are we gonna
If
have to
it's
have
on
a,
Harper's Landing, it's the county.
It's very much inside
Okay.
Harper's Landing. I mean, you turn past the sign, you go past the dealerships.
Okay.
And where you
Towards the
normally
little Fire
turn-
department. The fire department area.
Yes,
At the
yeah,
corner by the stop
yeah,
sign.
it's right at the T on the corner. They have it all barricaded off and it's just
Yeah,
feet full of water and
Do you have a leak over there?
the city of Conroe has a 24-inch water line that runs through there.
Oh, that's right.
It never drains well.
They had a leak over there, didn't they?
Yeah, they're still working on, apparently their force main is sitting right on top of their line, so they're looking at how to make the repair, move lines possibly, so it's actively
Okay.
right now.
I mean, it's always green. Like in June, it was so dry, but it was just always super green there. So it's like there's something going.
They had a leak.
that's a good telltale sign. All right, anything else on item number 19? Okay, moving on to item number 20, recess to closed session if necessary, and
Not necessary.
I understand it's not necessary, so therefore it's no item number 21. Item number 22, discuss any matters for placement on future agendas. Any items from anybody?
So our next meeting is the 28th, so that would be the future agenda. And
That will be a very short agenda.
that's what I wondered.
Public comments, conduct second hearing, consider approval. and
Okay.
Any additional discussion on the strategic partnership
And
agreement.
that would be considered like a special meeting, right?
Correct.
And so any other items for our regular meeting next month?
See if I can find some more on that Donville track.
Appreciate
Great.
that. Thank you. All right, it is 1:01 and having no other business to discuss, we are adjourned.
Thank you all.